Welcome back, friends and viewers. I'm here playing another thing, and in keeping with my usual pattern, I'm going to cleanse my palate with a short game before launching into another big one. This time out, I'll be playing a thing called MUSHA, a 1990 vertical shooter for the Genesis, developed by Compile, who previously gave us Golvelius, and were also known for the Puyo Puyo series of puzzle games. In Japan, MUSHA was released under the title MUSHA Aleste: Full Metal Fighter Eleanor, revealing its status as part of the Aleste series, which also included Power Strike on the Master System, Space Megaforce on the SNES, and Robo Aleste on the Sega CD. For the US market, MUSHA was localized and published by the relatively minor third-party company Seismic, and its title was reframed as an acronym for Metallic Uniframe Super Hybrid Armor. The main character's name was also changed from Eleanor to Terry, described here in the manual as an honored graduate of Air and Space University and also a highly addictive opiate narcotic. Before getting into the game, I'm going to take a moment to summarize the story since we won't really be seeing much of it in the game. MUSHA takes place in an alternate version of the 10th century in which Japan developed advanced robotics and space travel technology way ahead of schedule. We'll also be seeing a lot of Tenryaku-era Japanese influences in the enemy designs as well. Anyway, a space colony called Little Japan is launched, but its environmental control biocomputer named Dire 51 goes insane and starts trying to destroy mankind. Personally, I think you're just asking for trouble when you name your godlike supercomputer Dire 51, but maybe that's just me. In any case, we will be piloting our metallic uniframe super hybrid armor in a counterattack to destroy Dire 51, defend Little Japan, and perhaps save the entire human race. Well then, folks, what we've got here is probably the best vertical shooter on the Genesis, one of the best of the 16-bit era, and a game that can still demand several $100s for collectors, despite its availability on the Wii Virtual Console. This will be post-commentary, and frankly a rather awful run. Definitely recording luck here, but we'll get there. Friends, I give you MUSHA, and I hope you enjoy. Right from the beginning we have something kinda unique, because I cannot remember ever seeing that scaling Sega logo at the intro of any other Genesis cartridges. Of course, that may be an oversight in my memory. I certainly have a lot of those. And if we let our title screen sit for a few moments, there is a short intro, so I'm gonna go ahead and let that play. This here in the red helmet, by the way, is Eleanor/Terry, our delicious syringe of heroin. That's a pretty nice HUD. Good visibility all around the cockpit. And some pretty impressive shoulder cannons on our wingman there. Doesn't seem to have helped old Lieutenant Emilio too much. And things aren't working out any better for Commander Greg there. It seems our entire squadron is getting kinda reamed here. Well, in the grand tradition of any good shoot-'em-up, this is going to leave us the sole hope for humanity. But if Terry didn't play hero, then we wouldn't have much of a game now, would we? Anyway, that launches us into the attract mode, but I'm gonna go ahead and bypass that and make a stop in the options. Not much here. All we can really do is change the difficulty and listen to the various sounds. Difficulty actually makes a really big difference in this game. I can beat hard, but not consistently, so it's best if we stick with normal. Also, at the top you can see while the game is paused, I can adjust my speed. That's the red triangles there, and we see all of our allies getting nuked. At the top there, that carrier thing, when we shoot it, it drops power-ups. Collecting 3 of those will power up our main weapon that shoots those little kunai slash spike type shurikens forward. That's our main weapon fired with the C button. And also collecting those will give us drone ships, which work a little bit like options in Gradius, but we have more control over them. And here's the first sub-weapon, which is the green laser. The green beam, as I call it, from an old mispronunciation of green beam. And if we continue to collect the same sub-weapon, then we can power it up, and you can see that power level in the upper left corner where it says arm level. Arm level goes from 0 to 4. Also, having an active sub-weapon allows us to take one hit, so you are vulnerable to dying at any time if you don't have one. Now you see, I've been collecting those power-ups, the glowing kind, not the sub-weapon kind, and I've got little drone ships on my left and right wing. And those, by default, are in three-way formation, which, as you can see, fire at an angle on my left and right. And there's back formation, self-explanatory. And reverse, which fires in the opposite direction you're moving. Roll, which circles around you and just kind of sprays fire everywhere. And free, in which they actively seek out and try to destroy enemies. But in free mode... oh, there I go, losing my sub-weapon. In free mode, they don't really pay any mind to their own self-preservation, so that's a good way to lose a lot of them. There we have the blue sub-weapon, which is kind of a shield type of dealie. As I was saying, that's a good way, using free, to do a lot of damage, but also to lose lots of drones. Drones can be destroyed. They can take a few hits, but after getting shot a few times or running into an obstacle, they will be destroyed, and that's why next to our lives in the upper right, you see how many you have. As long as you have some in reserve, whenever one is destroyed, it will be replaced immediately. So it's good to have a good stock of those. There are certainly some levels and bosses and chunks of terrain that can take them out at a pretty rapid clip. We've seen two sub-weapons at this point, one being the good old green bean, which is your basic forward-focused, lots of damage attack power. We've seen the shield, which using that is a big drain on your attack power because it's really not very offensively effective, but there are places where it can be very handy to have a little extra protection, take a few projectiles away from you. And the red one is missile-based, and we will see that eventually. I would say the red missile sub-weapon is probably the most useful overall as a kind of bread-and-butter weapon, but I do get bored keeping one throughout the game, so in addition to showing them all off, I'm probably just going to switch every now and then just for the hell of it. Increasing the arm level of the blue sub-weapon, the shield, increases the number of shield swirls you have orbiting you and makes them larger. And at the maximum arm level 4, it will also fire forward, so that does give it a little bit of offensive punch. The green beam, as you can see, just starts with one beam, then gives you two beams, and eventually at arm level 4, it's two very large beams. Pretty straightforward power increases, and a little extra firing spread. And we'll see what's up with the missile one eventually. Oh, and right here we have a recurring enemy. This is Big Asia, which is sort of the enforcer for Dire 51. But as you can see, it doesn't hang around very long on level 1. We'll eventually have more meaningful fights with it later. And here you can see the green beam at its maximum power. Not much spread at all, but the three-way formation of our drone ships helps out a little with that. And we have at last come up on boss number 1. This game does have some decently long levels. First thing we've got to do is take out all the cannons in its Japanese castle-type frontal wall there. And then the cannon on top, with its skull motif. We'll just fire those 5-way flaming shots on us, and another sign that this was not going to be a good run was when I actually lost my sub-weapon against this thing, which normally never hits me. But we should have it down before too much longer. Well, we've blown off the top, which gives us an entry point, and Terry's gonna fly right on in there. And that's gonna be our level 2. And apparently we need to destroy the power chamber, and my goodness, this thing is quite a lot larger on the inside than the out. I need a sub-weapon, so this is a good opportunity to demo the missile. At lower arm levels, it is just some forward-firing missiles, but at arm level 3, it's got that 3-way napalm shot, and just now I upgraded it to arm level 4, which gives us 2-way missiles along with the black hole bomb in the middle. The black hole bomb is kind of unique in that, as far as I can tell, it doesn't actually do any damage directly, but it attracts things toward it. Enemies and some kinds of projectiles get sucked toward it. As you can see, the power-up carrier there got sucked straight into it. And this can actually mess you up sometimes because it really disrupts enemy patterns, but it also keeps things away from you, which can especially be valuable with certain types of projectiles and the few enemies that like to charge you. Got a sub-boss here that just spews out junk at you while summoning in moving walls from the sides. Not terribly challenging. Although those crushing walls can definitely take a chunk out of your drone stock. One thing that's kind of a bummer about this game is that it has some really great music in a lot of sections, but you're always hearing tons of explosions, weapon fire, and in the case of the black hole bomb, that persistent pew pew pew. So, unless you're actually in the sound test or in a particularly quiet stretch of the game, you rarely get a very good listen to that music, but oh well. Picking up a sub-weapon when you're already at arm level 4 gives you a few seconds of invincibility. Nothing terribly long, but we'll take all the help we can get. Funny thing about the missile sub-weapon, the arm level 3 with the 3-way napalm bombs, that's probably better in terms of raw damage output. It really hurts quite a bit, especially to large enemies that can get hit multiple times by the napalm blasts. But it's a tough call whether that or the black hole bomb is overall more useful, because again, the black hole bomb, by diverting enemies and some types of projectiles, can do a lot to help you stay alive. And here's our second boss, which is a pretty basic one. Just kind of moves back and forth along its tracks there, occasionally launching fire at you. Then you blow off the flamethrower, and it just does this 4-way shot, and that's really all it's got. Now, levels 1 and 2 of MUSHA are really pretty easy, although I've made them look a little harder than they actually are with my spectacular ineptitude at times. Level 3 is where the gloves start to come off a little bit. The game will still get quite a bit harder, but this is definitely a step up from 1 and 2. Now, this guy, he just throws shots that cause debris to fly out of the floor. Only the debris will hurt you. His purple ball doesn't actually do anything to you directly. The black hole bomb is really neat here because it pulls the debris out of your way. And now is when we can start hurting him, when he starts opening his mouth and firing this three-way shot. A little bit of damage to the mouth, and he will back off. And we will soon see why this is one of my favorite levels in the game. Floor begins to fall away, falls into a chasm with a lava river at the bottom. Kinda neat. And then as we get moving, we have some very nice deep parallax scrolling. One of those hallmarks of the 16-bit era, and something that I think is a little underused in vertical shooters as compared to their horizontal brethren. Here we also start to see enemies with homing missiles. Oh, and I got killed. Well, that's kind of a bummer. Getting killed in this isn't as punishment as it is in, say, a Gradius game or R-Type, but you do lose all your arm level and all of your primary weapon power-ups, so that kind of sucks. But MUSHA does pump out power-ups to you at a pretty regular rate, so it usually doesn't take it too long to pick up another sub-weapon. Oh, and here we're seeing another thing that I like about this level, which is that some enemies fly up from the depths, and when you destroy them, they fall down into the lava river. Pretty cool effect, I thought. Got a somewhat high-speed gate shooting section here, but it's not too fast. It's pretty manageable. Certainly nothing as obnoxious as the end of Life Force. Oh, I was saying about enemies with homing missiles. Those are one of the things that is more changed by the difficulty level than just about anything else. In easy mode, the homing missile enemies, their missiles are slow-moving and don't track very well, whereas at normal, they're threat worth prioritizing because the missiles move much faster and track much better, and in hard mode, they are an absolute bitch. Matter of fact, the boss of the next level is very missile-based, and he becomes one of the hardest bosses in the game in hard, for just that reason. So yeah, anytime you're above easy, in which they're pretty trivial, you really want to watch out for enemies that have homing missiles as their primary attack, because they are quite dangerous, although thankfully you can destroy them. Speaking of homing missile enemies, those fly things that shoot the homing missiles at you, don't they look kind of like the official art from Yar's Revenge? Well, never mind that. Here is boss number 3, and shoots rather familiar white tracking orbs at us. And when we blow off the outer armor shell, we can see why they're familiar. They're that guy from the beginning of the level that ran away when we did a little damage to him just before the floor fell out. And he continues to shoot his homing spheres while occasionally dashing down to try a sort of bodily charge, but just like number 2, he's not a particularly tough boss. And that, as they say, is that. And here we launch straight into another of my favorite levels in the game, which has probably my favorite music track. You're not going to be able to hear it too well, but I'm sure it's out there on YouTube somewhere, or you can fire up the game yourself and run it in the sound test. Some very cool classic Genesis Z80 hard rock. And this level, while it doesn't have the deep parallax of level 3, we will see some rather cool effects later. This enemy here, as a kid, I always called the baby, so Terry just killed a baby. Always a good time. And now the sky darkens and we start to see one of the cool effects on this level. You can see the shadows of the ninja robots beneath the clouds, and they pop up and start swinging morning stars at you. It's a good idea to focus in on them when you see their shadow so you can kill them quickly, get them out of the way. And we've got a fairly cool lightning storm going. Combination of the music and the storm is what makes this level a favorite of mine. 3 and 4, I think, are the best levels in the game, graphically speaking, although certainly for intensity, the later levels will outdo them. Mini-boss here, no big deal. Except I managed to get myself killed anyway. Now that the storm has run its course, the cloud cover opens up a little and we can see the city lights down beneath. Again, nothing technically impressive, graphically speaking, but this is just a level full of nice, relatively subtle touches. Well, aside from the lightning storm, nothing subtle about that. But never mind that, we've got another baby to destroy. They breed faster than you can kill them. Downside of the missile sub-weapon, I think, is that it's fairly boring at arm levels 0 and 1. Nothing too exciting at arm level 3 either. Or 2, rather. It's at 3 that it starts to get good, because that's when you start to get the napalm effect. Speak of the devil. Oh, I'm sorry, at arm level 2 you do get the napalm effect, you just don't get 3-way of it. So that's still pretty good. Boss number 4, as I was discussing before, this guy, how much of a pain he is really dependent on the difficulty level. Because while he has some of those forward cloud bullets, the big barrages of homing missiles are really kind of his main hat. So, on easy difficulty, this guy is really, really trivial. Whereas on normal, a little bit more of a pain. That big laser, not a big threat because it's so telegraphed, but there's a barrage of homing missiles between each firing of it. And on hard mode, this might actually be the toughest boss in the game. Well then, I think that's right about our halfway point, so this seems as good a time to leave off as any. This has been and I would like to say, as always, thank you for watching. And we'll be back next week with the exciting conclusion to MUSHA. Till then, take care.